Listen, if you have your Bibles real fast, turn with me, if you will, to the book of Numbers, chapter 13. Numbers, chapter 13. Numbers, chapter 13. And we're going to begin reading at verse 26. Numbers, chapter 13, beginning at verse 26. Numbers, chapter 13, beginning at verse 26. And it reads like this. Now they departed and came back to Moses and Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel in the wilderness of Paran at Kadesh. They brought back word to them that all and to all the congregation and showed them the fruit of the land. Then they told him and said, we went to this land where you sent us. It truly flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. Nevertheless, the people who dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the descendants of Anak there, and the Amalekites dwell in the land of the south. The Hittites, the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea along the banks of the Jordan. Then Caleb quieted the people before Moses and said, let us go up at once and take possession, for we are well able to overcome it. But the men who had gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land which they had spied out, saying, the land through which we have gone as spies is a land that devours its inhabitants, and all the people whom we saw in it are men of great stature. There we saw the giants. The descendants of Anak came from giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight. Hold on, flip to the next chapter real fast. It says, so all the congregation lifted up their voices and cried, and the people wept that night. And all the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron, and the whole congregation said to them, if only we had died in the land of Egypt, or if only we died in this wilderness. Why has the Lord brought us to this land to fall by the sword, that our wives and children should become victims? Would it not be better for us to return to Egypt? So they said to one another, let us select the leader and return to Egypt. Moses fell on and Aaron fell on their faces before the assembly and the congregation of the children of Israel. But Joshua, the son of Nun, and Caleb, the son of Jephunneh, who were among those who had spied out the land, tore their clothes. Verse 7 says this, and they spoke to all the congregation of the children of Israel, saying, the land we passed through to spy out is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, then he will bring us into the land and give it to us, a land that flows with milk and honey. For the next couple of minutes, I want to talk from this thought: fighting the fear to move forward. Fighting the fear to move forward. We are a couple of days away from not only a new year, but a new decade. And it is a time of great excitement, a time of great expectation. But to be real, it's also a time of great anxiety. I mean, we've never charted 2020. And I know that every page you turn on, somebody is declaring and promoting all the great things that they're going to accomplish. And I've done it too in the past. I've made great declarations about what is going to come. But can I be honest? We do this every year. Every year, we stand at the precipice of a new year with promises and expectations and anticipations that when we look back over at the memory from last year that's going to show up in 2 days on our timeline, we realize that we are still as broke, we're still as poor, we're still as desperate for a new job, a new boo, we're desperate for something new. We still overweight. We're still eating the wrong stuff. We're still not drinking a gallon a day. We're still doing stuff that's detrimental to our body. And here's the reality. We have found ourselves stuck. And we're stuck because we really don't know how to move forward. For some reason, no matter how much we declare it, we just can't do it. We dream it, we declare it, but we have an inability of follow through. We have an inability of getting the job done. We can't seem to get it done. And can I tell you, we're not the first people to feel like this. In fact, that's why the text I'm reading is so important, because the people we're reading about are people that also had their whole future and promise in front of them, but because of their negative self-talk and because they were afraid, they were unable to attain what God had already positioned them for. This is major, because I need you to make some correlations. I believe this is a metaphor, and it's a metaphor for several different things, especially as it relates to where we are right now on this day. I believe that when we think about the promised land that they're talking about, the promised land metaphorically is this new year and new decade, that we are facing a promised land. Now, here's the crazy thing. The promised land is a land that they hadn't been on, but they had been on. Their descendants had been there before, because Canaan is not new, but what Canaan is now is Canaan is a country that they never touched foot on, because they've been removed from Canaan for 400 years of captivity in Egypt. Oh, wow. So you need to understand that where you're going is not necessarily lands and places that no one's ever been. It's just places you've never been. So you're going into territory that you have never allowed yourself to enter, because you had been so separated by bondage and by slavery of things that were out of your control. Wow. So you are going into new places that have already been tread, and that the potential has been placed. See, this is not the first time we're hearing about Jebusites and Hittites. This is just the first time these people are going to be introduced to them. And it's scary to them, because now there is the weight of promise attached to it that they hadn't heard in a long time. Because when you've been so enslaved in something, here's the crazy, when you've been so enslaved in something that sometimes you forget that there is promise right around you. That you've been so enslaved, you have learned to speak the language of captivity. You've learned to speak the language of oppression. And in speaking the language of oppression, you've no longer learned to use the tongue of optimism and the tongue of power. The power of life and death is in our tongue, and the oppressive tongue is a tongue of death and not a tongue of life. Okay, so then you see that potential when they brought back the fruit, that and the honey, that land of milk and honey, is not about white milk and gold honey. It's about milk coming from lambs and cows, which suggests livestock. And honey in those days did not come from bees, it came from dates. So land of honey is a land of produce. So it's dealing with productivity and prosperity. So the spies represent dreams. Caleb and Joshua represents vision and possibility, and the other 10 represent negative self-talk and negative advice. So the question we're going to deal with today, real fast, because I got to get off, is how do we fight the fear to move forward? How do we fight the fear to move forward? Well, the first way we fight the fear to move forward is that we make sure that our instructions come from God and not man. We make sure our instructions come from God and not man. See, there was a translation error that occurred from when God gave Moses the instructions and when Moses gave the people the instructions. Look at it. I'm not making it up. Look at what it says in chapter 13, verse 1. It says, the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, send the men out to spy the land of Canaan, which I am giving them. The children of Israel from each of their tribes. Listen, God says, send out to spy the land I'm giving them. But when Moses gathers the people in verse 17, look at what he says. He says, go to the south, go to the mountains, see what the land is like, whether the people who dwell there are strong or weak, few or many, whether the land they dwell in is good or bad, whether the cities they inhabit are like camps or strongholds, whether the land is rich or poor, whether the forest is there or not. Be of good courage and bring some fruit from the land. Watch this. Hold on. That's not what God said. God simply said this: go look at the land I'm giving you. Moses said you got to make sure all these Moses says you got to make sure all these pieces are in place before you possess the land. hold on, listen. See, if you don't have a good conversation with God and are able to hear from God yourself, you will allow man-made instructions to prevent you from following through with God-given impartations. God told you to go just look at the land. And now, because you've listened to your leader, who is Moses, who is now put in parameters that must be met to satisfy his own fear and his own feelings of carefulness. And remember, oh my God, remember who Moses is. Moses is the one that when he was first told in Exodus chapter 3 to go and get him from Egypt, that came up with all these excuses about how he couldn't and why he couldn't and how they would receive him and his stammering tongue. So he put in all these safeguards to ensure that what they were going to see would be based on their ability to conquer. Oh man, but God never told them they had to conquer. God said it was their land. Oh man. And here's what happens. You can become so afraid to move forward if you wait for man to give you permission to pursue your promise. Oh God, you can't worry about what man says. Okay, here's my favorite verse for 2020. Let me tell it to you right now. I'm gonna pause in this and just tell you, write this down. Psalm 118:6. Psalm 118:6. Write it down because you need to hear this. It says this: the Lord is on my side. I will not fear. What can man do to me? Whew, that's my verse. That's my verse. The Lord is on my side. And if the Lord is on my side, I ain't worried about man's parameters and man's considerations. So Moses put all these parameters in. And if you are not listening to God for instruction, here's where the problem is going to lie. You are going to not move, because when man puts parameters, you got to make sure you have this plan. You got to make sure you have this written out. And I'm not against writing, but you got to make sure you understand that God has already given you permission. And if God is the one talking to you as you need to make new steps and new decisions, God will be the one to reveal it to you. So many of us are stuck because we're waiting on man to give us confirmation for what God has already commanded. God's already commanded that you move into this promise. How do you know? Because he woke you up. If he wakes you up and gives you breath, and he's given you the authority to accomplish what he's put before you. Stop waiting on man to give you permission to do what God has already promised. Here's the second thing. I got to move forward. So not only do you need to make sure you have instructions that come from God. Here's the second thing. You got to select your circle based not on their affluence, but on their assurance and their assistance. You got to make sure you select your circle, the people who you bounce your ideas off, the people you run your ideas by. You have to make sure that they're selected not based on their affluence, but based on their ability to give assurance, affirmation, and assistance. How do I know? Look at verse 3. Verse 3 says, so Moses sends them from the wilderness of Paran according to the command of the Lord, all the men who were heads of the children of Israel. Watch this. So he chose the leaders from the 12 tribes. He chose the leaders from the 12 tribes to go with Joshua and Caleb. But those same leaders, when they came back in verse 31, but the men who'd gone with him said, we're not able to go against the people because they're stronger than us. And they gave the children of Israel a bad report. Here's the problem. Many of us surround ourselves with people who not only have never been where we're going, but who do not have vision or have not heard from God to know the instructions that God has given us. You can't surround yourself with people who are going to constantly try to contain you. Why? Because sometimes they contain you not because they don't believe you can do it, but they contain you because they've never seen it done and they doubt their own ability. Ooh. So you got to surround yourself with people who are going to say, listen, I like that idea. Let me figure out how to help you. Or I can't help you, but let me connect you to somebody who can. See, in 2020, you're going to have to surround yourself with people who speak life into your ministry, who speak life into your gifting, who may not be the answer, may not know all the answers, but they are connected to people who they can direct you. Listen, oh my God. Oh my God. You can't be around someone who's so arrogant that they feel that if they don't give you the answer, it's not the answer. Oh man. See, you got to be around people who say, listen, I can't give you the answer, but I can fund your vision. Or I can't give you the answer, but I know 3 or 4 people. Let me make a couple phone calls. See, here's the thing. There is no one person that's going to be the end all be all. There were 12 people in this spy group. And out of the 12, only 2 saw possibility. The other 10 spoke death. And you know what the problem was? They were affluent. They were leaders. So they were so concerned about their position, they weren't worried about God's promise. Oh, man. Because here's the thing. When you go into the promised land, the whole lines of organization change. Ooh, which means sometimes I don't want you to go to the promised land, because if you go to the promised land, I'll lose some of my power and influence over you. Ooh, so some people won't be allowed. Some people won't be assuring and assisting and affirming of you reaching your promise, because when you reach your promise, you may no longer need them, and they are only validated by their need, by their knowing that somebody needs them. Whew. And when you no longer need them, they reduce in their affluence, and then they don't want to be connected to you. Hold on, I keep going. Oh man, this is good. I didn't even know it was going to be this good, but it's getting good to me already, and I'm only on point 2. Let's go. Don't allow your real assessment of the situation to supersede your real assessment of yourself and your God. Okay, listen. Here's where it gets deep. Go to verse 27. It says, then they told him and said, we went to the land you sent us. It flows with milk and honey. This is the fruit. Nevertheless, the people dwell in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, the descendants of Anak are there. The Amalekites dwell in the land. The Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites dwell on the mountains. The Canaanites dwell by the sea and along the bank of the Jordan. Watch this, verse 30. Then Caleb says, let us go up and attain at once and take possession, for we are well able to overcome it. I'm not done. Jump over to chapter 14, because let's see how Joshua says it. Verse 7, Joshua says, the land we passed through to spy is an exceedingly good land. If the Lord delights in us, he'll bring us into the land and give it to us. Whew, man. So listen, yes, it's going to be rough. Yes, it's a lot of challenges. Yes, there are a lot of things to conquer. Yes, the people there are great. Yes, there are people we've never encountered before. Yes, there are a lot of things working against us, but that doesn't matter, because if God wants us to have it, we're going to have it. Woo-wee. You need to be able to not allow, be honest with your assessment. Yes, it's going to be difficult. Yes, every day in 2020 is going to be difficult. Why? Because I've never lived that day before. But can I tell you the blessing? The Bible tells us that every morning God releases new mercy. In other words, every morning I'm allowed to wake up, I'm also given mercy to give me strength to make it through that day. He gives me what I need to succeed if I would just receive it from him and not allow my assessment of it to trump my assessment of him. Oh, and if I believe that he is truly able, then all I got to do is wake and walk. God, that's all I got to do in 2020 is wake up and walk. That's it. That's it. Okay, here's the next thing. Let's see. Stop. Here's the next thing. In order to fight the fear of moving forward, you got to stop giving negative talk and naysayers access to the microphone. So Caleb just said, let's get it. Caleb said, let's go. Caleb said, let's do this. But then somebody let the other 10 Negroes talk. It says, but the men who'd gone up with him said, we are not able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they gave the children of Israel a bad report of the land that they spied out. Man, you got to be careful who you give the mic to. Now that's important, because even though they were not named, we know who they are. They represent the seat of authority in the Israel tribes. So they have affluence. They have influence, and their self-talk is great. Okay, maybe in your life, it's not 12 outside people. Maybe it's 12 inside people. So maybe the inside voices, there are two parts of you that believe in you, but there are 10 parts of you that are doubtful of who you are based on who you've been. The danger of self-talk is that self-talk comes from self. Self-talk is the vocalization of internal fears and struggle. And oftentimes, if we give the wrong part of us, the wrong part of our memory, the microphone, we will talk ourselves out of every positive thing. Let me tell you what it looks like. I go into the store and I go into TJ Maxx, and when I go into TJ Maxx, I get a buggy, and when I go into TJ Maxx, I find the polo, I find the jeans that fit me in my current state. I find the bow ties, I find the cologne, and as I'm walking, I'm telling myself I don't need it. I don't need it, man. You got enough shirts. You don't need another shirt. You got enough jeans. You don't need another jean. Oh man, this cologne is $24.99. You probably should find one that's $16.99. Oh, find one $16.99. Oh wait, there's a $9.99 cologne. And so by the time I get to the register, I done emptied the whole basket, and I'm just putting it back and walking out the door. That's how negative self-talk works. So if you allow the wrong 10 people in your head the microphone, they'll tell you you're not pretty enough, you're not qualified enough, you're not ordained enough, you're not anointed enough, you ain't got enough oil. They'll tell you your credit score is too low. They'll tell you nobody will ever give you a loan, nobody will ever take a chance on you. You messed up the last time, you failed the last time, you were weak the last time, and as a result, you'll never do it. Here's the crazy thing. The crazy thing is we believe our own hype. In other words, there's a part of us that wants to believe we're not successful. There's a part of us that wants to believe we're not good enough. I hate to say it, but the reality is there's a part of us that doesn't believe in us. And that's the danger of self-talk, because self-talk knows how your self, internal, your id, yourself knows how to speak to yourself in a language that will deflate yourself. In other words, they said to themselves, listen, we can't defeat this people. And as a result, it's easier to agree with them than to believe the two that believe. It's easier to say, man, I ain't gonna do it, man, I can't do it, than to really trust the two that are speaking in affirmation. So you got to stop giving people with that are negative self-talkers and naysayers access to the microphone. Here's the crazy thing. The next thing, you got to know the challenges that you face are unpredictable, but they're still not out of control of God. In other words, you're going into a promised land. And here's the reality. There's no way to predict what's going to happen. There was no way to predict crossing the Jordan again. There was no way to predict Jericho. There was no way to predict the battle that took place on the other side of Jericho with hay. There's no way to predict this. But all you must do is count on the God that called you and commissioned you to carry you to your destiny. You can't allow yourselves to be stopped by the challenges and possibilities of challenges you will face. I got some entrepreneurs on here, and entrepreneurs never say, when Lee goes to the barbershop, Lee never says, I can't go to the barbershop today because there's going to be a line out the door. No, Lee posts on Facebook, I'm putting hair on the floor, and he commences to cut until the last person is cut. See, here's the thing. If you allow the potential for challenges to pause you, you will never move forward. You will never make the next step. You have to automatically know that whatever you're facing, the God who's with you is going to carry you through. Here's the next thing. Stop letting your apprehensions give you a bad assessment. Stop letting your apprehensions give you a bad assessment. The text says they were scared. Look at what the text says. The text says that as a result of that, this is what they said: the land to which we've gone to spy out is a land that devours its inhabitants. That that what we saw was a land where death was imminent. Man, how productive will you be if everything you see has death attached to it? How willing to take a chance will you be if everything you see has death attached to it? It comes from their own anxiety. Now, here's the crazy thing, and maybe I need to save this till later, but they have been in the wilderness now about 2 years and 2 months. So they've been on the other side of the Red Sea about 2 years and 2 months, right? And so they're wondering about their future. I mean, being in the wilderness gives you anxiety. You're wondering, how many days do I have to wander like this? How many days do I have to go on like this? How many days do I have to scratch and survive? How many days um, do I have to rob Peter to pay Paul? How many days? And because of this, they're already leery because they've kind of gotten used to the manna. Ooh, they've kind of gotten used in 2 years to drinking from the brook. They've kind of gotten used to living the way they've been living, and they really don't want to take a risk because in their minds, taking a risk is not worth risking the comfort of their dysfunction. Oh, God. And so many of us are afraid to move forward because even though there possibly could be greater, we kind of got used to how we've been living. We kind of know exactly what day we need to pay our light bill to ensure that our lights don't get cut off. We know we can make it beyond the cutoff date, and we know exactly we know what time they cut our water off. In fact, some of us got water keys where we go right back outside and cut it on until they put a lock on it. Oh, maybe that ain't y'all. Never mind. I ain't want to tell y'all my business. Some of us are used to parking our car at somebody else's house so that the repo man can't find it. So some of us are used to that. And we're so afraid of anything different that we're not going to try anything new. We're not going to try it. So we've become comfortable. Even though it's crazy and our friends tell us, Doc, you shouldn't be living like this. You shouldn't be doing this. We're so used to it. We're not really trying to do anything. Yeah, there you go, Wani. That's it. Dealing with the devil you know. Yeah. It's easy to deal with the devil you know than to take a step or a chance and trying to deal with something you've never faced before. Oh, I got to push it though. Here's the next thing. Stop seeing yourself through the lens of inadequacy. Look at what they said. And all the people whom we saw, we're in verse 32, in it are men of great stature. There we saw giants, and we were like grasshoppers in our own eyes. In other words, everybody we saw was more qualified. Everybody we encountered was better. Everybody was more polished, more educated. They were more productive. They had more possibility and chance of getting it. How many of us have talked ourselves out of applying for jobs and scholarships because we already saw the pool of applicants and figured there's no way we would even be considered in that. We allowed our own low self-esteem. That's my next point. Know that your self-talk shows your self-esteem. We allowed our own negative self-talk. We allowed the way we see ourselves to dictate the way we operate. So as a result, we don't take a chance because everybody we see is better than us. Everybody we see is more capable. And part of that challenge, though, here's the crazy thing, is we're taught that. We're taught to be humble. We're taught to never really show all our hand, never really promote ourselves. And as a result, we've become so humble that we can't be effective. We're so busy dumbing down. We're so busy we're so busy defeating ourselves because we don't want people to see or think we're bragging or thinking we're being arrogant. No, there's a difference between arrogance and confidence. Listen, I have not been in school most of my adult life to shy and act like I don't know. I do. And listen, I hate saying this. This is crazy. It's false humility. But the reality is, listen, The reality is you have to be able to see yourself not as inadequate. And you have to not allow the self-talk to reveal your low self-esteem. They said, listen, we are grasshoppers in our own sight, and so we were in their sight. Oh man, listen, one of the amazing things I learned being with animals is that oftentimes animals are just as afraid of us as we are of them. Oftentimes we're so afraid of them, but in their minds they're afraid of us, right? So what these men did was they transferred their own fear onto the group. Now here's the crazy thing. Watch this now. This is what'll blow your mind. You ready? They were spying from a distance, which means they saw the giants of Anak, but the giants of Anak never saw them. They saw the Hittites, the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Amalekites, the Hittites, the Canaanites, but they never saw them. Remember, they never engaged them. They just spied. So they were really assuming what the giants would think about them. And again, our self-talk will enable us or will hinder us from taking chances, because in our minds, they see us as we see ourselves. Woo-wee. And the crazy thing is, you will never know how capable you are until you take the step to apply. As long as you're failing to apply, as long as you're failing to try, you will never become who you can be, because you're thinking they believe you are who you think you are. Oh, wow. Okay, let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. Don't allow, here we go. I'm done. I got two more. I'm done. I got three more. Don't allow a moment of frustration to cause you to forget all you've overcome. Whew, God, let's go to chapter 14. This is crazy. They've heard what they've said. And listen to what happens. The congregation lifts up their voice and cries, and the people wept all night. And all the children of Israel complained against Moses and Aaron and the whole congregation and said, if only we died in the land of Egypt. Wow. Catch this. Don't allow a moment of frustration to cause you to forget all that you've overcome. 2 years ago, 2 years and 2 months ago, they were in bondage. They were making bricks without straw. They were being beaten. They were being humiliated. They were at the whim of Pharaoh 2 years and 2 months ago. And now, because of a little challenge, they're frustrated to the point they want to go back. They're frustrated to the point that they forgot the fact that God had delivered them. And here's the thing, as we prepare for 2020, we can't forget all that God has already done for us. Oh man, we can't forget all that God has already delivered us from. We can't forget all that God has already brought us through. Listen, here's the crazy thing, because many people are saying last year was their worst year. That's cool, but remember, they're thinking 2 years ago. They're not thinking in the last year. They're not recently delivered. They're 2 years and 2 months removed. God is, and even in that 2 years and 2 months, they ain't never go hungry, right? They ain't never go thirsty. Like, God has been consistently. They ain't never lost a battle. They've never gone through any major hardship. They've just been walking. But that's what they did already. See, they've been nomadic before they ended up in Egypt. In Egypt, they had to build cities and nations. Why? Because they were in captivity. Oh man. Don't allow your captive moments to cause you to forget the people you were before captivity. Oh God, that's what we needed to hear. Don't allow this recent captivity to cause you to forget the people you were before you became captive. Before you became captive, you were in the lineage of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and Joseph. Before you became captive, you were kings, you were rich, you were leaders, you were the children of the promise, and that hasn't changed because of your captivity. But now you're on the other side and you're frustrated. Don't allow it to cause you to forget what you've already overcome. Here's the next to the last thing. Don't let fear drive you to a place of certain failure. Now listen, this is what really blew my mind when I listened to what they said. Listen to what they say now. They said, if we'd only died in the land of Egypt, or if we died in this wilderness, why has the Lord brought us back to this land to fall on the sword, that our wives and children might become victims? Would it not be better, watch this, for us to return to Egypt? So they said to one another, let us choose a leader and return to Egypt. Okay, maybe that didn't catch you because you don't remember Exodus chapter 15. Exodus chapter 15 and actually the end of chapter 14, after they crossed the Red Sea, what they saw was the waters close on Pharaoh and all of his army, and it killed everybody. Watch this. So what they said was, I'm so afraid, I'm willing to go back to a place that doesn't exist, to a place that's been completely destroyed by the hand of the God that I'm now being promised land to, all because I'm afraid. Listen, oh God, listen, oh man. Don't in 2020 allow fear to drive you back to something that's automatically going to be failure. Don't let it send you back to that job. Don't let it send you back to that abusive relationship. Don't let it send you back to that abusive friend. Don't let it send you back to that drug or that alcohol that almost destroyed you. Don't let it send you back to that place where you already know failure is attached just because you're afraid. Listen, what is before you is way greater than what's already. God already destroyed that. He delivered you from that. You bet not go back. Oh my God. Oh, God has already eradicated them from the, they're not even an option, but in fear, they become an option. In fear, you start to ponder the possibility of where you've come from and what you've left. And you start wondering, I wonder if they still make that peanut butter pound cake I like. I wonder if they still put them sheets on the bed. I wonder if they still have that position open. I wonder if they still have that parking space available. I wonder if their benefits are still good. I wonder if they still kiss the way they used to kiss. No, they might have kissed you, but they also hit you. And you got to remember that in the Snapchat of what you're remembering about the positivity of that past experience that God delivered you. If it was so perfect, God would have kept you there, but he delivered you from it. So stop looking back to it. Okay, I'm done. I'm done. Here's the last thing. Don't let being afraid add time to your arrival. Here's the thing that doesn't change. God still sends them to the promised land. But what has happened is their self-talk delays their destiny. How do I know? Because the other side of this moment is God's involvement, where he adds 40 years to their wandering. In other words, when they could have occupied it in 2 years and 2 months, now they have to wait another 38 years before they're able. They have to wander. In fact, here's the crazy thing. None of the people that doubted make it in. In fact, everybody that doubted that's 20 years and older dies wandering in the next 38 years. And so only those people that are younger than 20 and those that are birthed in the wilderness make it in, along with Caleb and Joshua. Here's the thing. God's plan doesn't change for you, even though you're afraid to pursue it. What changes is the timeline. In other words, the more you delay, the longer it takes you to reach your destiny, the longer it takes for you to reach. And here's the danger. If you wait too long, you may not even get to experience it. You may just be written about in the history of how it came to be. Ooh, God. It may just be your dream, but it ends up being somebody else's development if you wait too long. Oh man, oh man. God doesn't have to keep you around to get the job done. There is always someone else waiting that God has already birthed. See, God already birthed the Joshua, knowing Moses might mess up in the wilderness. So even though Moses got him to the door, Joshua takes him in. Oh man. Here's the thing you got to remember. Don't think you're so needed that God will wait on you. He will wait, But when he's ready, it's going to go whether you go with it or not. Don't allow being afraid to add time to your arrival. It can happen in 2020, but if you're afraid, it may not happen to 2024. It may not happen to 2027. And who's to say your vitality is going to stay with you to the point you can truly execute what God had originally given you? It might not be for you. It might be for somebody else because you didn't manage your season of opportunity appropriately. So listen, we are days away from this new season. We're days away from this new decade and this new year. Here's what you need to remember. Don't allow your fear, don't allow your fear to cause you to fail to move forward. There are things that have been promised to you by God himself that you can allow the naysayers and the self-talk, the negative self-talk, to lead you to not follow through with God's assignment for you. You're in control of this destiny. God has placed it in you don't need any more confirmation. God has already told it to you. So you have to now run with it. Let's pray. God, we're so excited about what you've done. We're so excited about how you're doing it. And God, we simply ask you right now that you give us the strength and the wisdom to trust and believe in you, to follow your words explicitly, to follow your direction to the people who are to support us and encourage us, to provide the resources to help fund the dreams, to not just dream and declare, but to also do. God, we know you're able. We trust you. We believe you. We depend on you. We count it all joy, regardless of what we've been through in 2019, because regardless of what it is, we've survived and we're here. And the same way you helped us this year, we're expecting you to help us next year. So God, we know that all we have to do is wake and walk, because every morning we wake up, you dispense mercy to give us strength to walk through that day. We love you and praise you. In your son, Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, listen, man, I thank y'all for being on. Man, I thank y'all for being on. I'm so excited. Listen, the Life Center is transitioning next 3 months. We'll be back in March with new stuff. For the next 2 months, we're going to run some stuff that we had done, that we hadn't really put out there in a couple years. We got some series that's going to really help us launch this new year. Our theme for 2020 is dream, declare, and do. And so we're going to be releasing it. We are changing our platform beginning in a couple of days. We will no longer be TLC Sumter. For many of you that don't know, we have relocated out of Sumter, and while Sumter was our base, Sumter is not all that we are. And so we will be launching TLC Cyber, because the Life Center is truly a cyber ministry. And with that comes some upgrades that we are putting into place. So for the next 2 months, there won't be any new Monday Mannas, but there still will be Monday Manna. It will just come in a different form. You'll be excited about it. My buddy Ray is dealing with my media, and it's about to be bananas. So get ready. But where we're going is not where we've been. And we're so excited. We're not even worried about anybody saying anything that's anti what's happening, because God's already given us permission. So remember Psalm 118:6, the Lord is on my side. God, I love you. Who shall I fear? What can man do to me? So again, if you want to sow, you can do it Cash App, Givelify, PayPal, TLC Sumter. Oh, only for 1 more month, 1 more time. This is your last time to sow, to be counted in our contribution statements that's coming out in a couple weeks. If you want to start giving your first fruits, we start that on the 1st. First fruits is your first show of sowing into the Life Center. That's we're asking for a support seed of $20, and that can be done the same way. The envelope is already on the Givelify page, and that's TLC Sumter. Um, Also, if you haven't found us online, if you haven't found us on YouTube, please find us. Type in Monday Manna. You should see a video. Subscribe to the channel, man. I want to change the name of the channel to something that can represent us, but I can't do it until I get 100 subscribers. So please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Lola, listen, I'm praying for you. I know you had loss recently, and I'm asking that God covers you and your family. Make sure if you go to the Life Center page on Facebook, I think you can add your name to our mailing list so that you can get our e-blast. If not, just inbox me your email address. I'll add you. I think that's it. Karen sends her love. We are excited about 2020, and we come back in March. It's on and popping. But until then, you got a couple major series that I think are going to bless your life. So I think we're doing I Win with the Win, WIN with the WHEN. I think we're going to do that one. And I think there's a Storm series, Storm Survival 101. I think that's the second one we're going to do. And that's going to cover us till March. So I'm excited. Y'all just get ready. It's going to give you just what you need to get this 2020 popping. Remember, dream, declare, and do. It's not just enough to dream and declare it if you're not doing it. All right? Listen, I love y'all all. Man, y'all have a safe night tomorrow night. I'm preaching in Goochland, Virginia. So if y'all are in the Richmond area or the DMV, swing on down to Goochland, and we're going to have church preaching a message entitled Gets to Stepping from Joshua chapter 1, verses 1 through 6. So again, listen, I love y'all all. Y'all have a great night. Can't wait to see you in the new year. To God be the glory. Share this video. Please share it. Start a watch party. Whatever you got to do. Let's get the word out. No fear. Just moving forward. I love you. To God be the glory.